محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد بإذن الله تعالى. We have some things prepared for you as it relates to as-siyam, to fasting. I encourage everyone who is hearing my voice, whether it is now live or sometime in the future from a recording, to have with you a pen and a piece of paper. And not for just this sitting, but for all sittings. Whenever you listen to a lecture or you attend a class, you should always have a pen and a paper, so that you may write down the fawaid, the benefits and the points that need to be memorized and that you can go back to later and study them. Likewise, when you read a book, you should never read a book except that you have with you a pen and a piece of paper. For the same reason, you may come across some sentences, some paragraphs that catch your eye. And a lot of times from our educational background, we are taught to put some type of asterisk or to underline or to highlight and or put a bookmark on that particular page so we may go back to it to review it. And alhamdulillah, some of us have become reared and used to this and accustomed to this, so do that. But add to it, because it is more beneficial, that you have a notebook with you that you will actually write down that sentence that you highlighted or that you put an asterisk by and so on and so forth. You write out that paragraph that you had highlighted or put an asterisk by and so on and so forth, and put the page number and the book in which it can be found therein. And this will enable you to go back to that notebook in your free time and memorize those passages, to review those paragraphs, and so on and so forth, and memorize those points of benefit. This way you always have it with you. Because how many lectures have we gone to and heard many great and outstanding topics, and then we walk away with them with very little, and then as time goes by, if someone were to ask you, oh, remember the class from last year, or the conference from last year or 2 years ago, and so on and so forth, and alhamdulillah, we have recollections of it, and we say, yes, we remember, we were there, and so on and so forth. But then when you would ask a person, okay, give me some points of benefit that you benefited from that conference that happened last year or 2 years ago. Now it's silent. Well, I don't remember that. I remember being there. I remember seeing you there. I remember we went out to eat and so on and so forth. But the points of benefit, what was spoken about, what was discussed, what were the topics. Let me go back to the tape. Let me go back to the file, the CD, the MP3, whatever the case may be. And then maybe I can refresh my memory and then I can tell you. But if you had that pen and paper and you had the dates and the conference and so on and so forth, and you memorized some points from it, at least you will have those points. You will say, I remember 10 points from this particular class. And you have that everywhere you go because you memorized it. It's with you now. And you have it for easy access. So inshallah ta'ala, this is just an encouragement for myself first and foremost, and for all those who are hearing my voice, to have a pen and to have a paper and to write down notes of benefit. Because no doubt, if you just come and you passively participate, you're not going to remember much. You're not going to recall much. You're not going to benefit much. Naam. طيب. Al-Allama Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan حفظه الله تعالى, he mentions الصيام هو ركن ثالث من أركان الإسلام, that fasting, it is the third pillar from the pillars of Islam. Fasting is the third pillar from the pillars of Islam. And that pillar of fasting, it is preceded by which pillars? By the shahada, number 1. Number 2, as-salah. Naam. And number 3 is, well, according to what the Shaykh mentions, fasting. We mentioned it being the third. Naam, which will make, in this case, zakat the 4th and hajj the 5th. طيب. So the Shaykh, he mentions it is the 3rd pillar from the pillars of al-Islam. And that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَقَدْ فَرَضَهُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى على هذه الأمة كما فرضه على الأمم السابقة. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has made fasting obligatory upon this nation as He made it obligatory upon the previous nations. Right? As He made it obligatory upon the previous nations. Does this sound vaguely familiar to anyone? That fasting has been made obligatory upon us as it was made obligatory upon those who came before us. Right? Does anyone recall in which chapter of the Qur'an this ayah is mentioned? Surah Al-Baqarah. Does anyone recall the number of the ayah? This is what you want down in your notes. 183. 183 from Surah Al-Baqarah. Does anyone recall the last time they heard this ayah being recited? Huh? Just a few minutes ago, right? You guys were scaring me, man. Y'all was like quiet for a couple seconds too long there. Just a few minutes ago, right? كما في قوله تعالى, as it comes in Allah Ta'ala's statement, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. That all you who believe, fasting has been kutiba, has been written upon you. The Shaykh, he says, فَرَضَهُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى, that Allah has made fasting obligatory upon you. Right? But in the ayah comes the word kutiba. Kutiba. Naam. So what do we understand from kutiba? Because kutiba literally means it was written upon you. Right? So what is the meaning of the word kutiba huna? Is what? Furida. Naam, ahsant. That kutiba here means furida. It has been made obligatory upon you. So written upon you in this ayah means obligatory. It's been made obligatory upon you. As it was obligatory upon those who came before you, so in order and perhaps you may attain taqwa, piety, so that you may attain taqwa, And that fasting, it was made obligatory. The Shaykh, he says, في سنة الثانية من الهجرة. It was made obligatory in the 2nd year of Hijrah. So when was fasting made obligatory? Which year? The 2nd year of Hijrah. This is also a point you want to have down in your notes. And everyone has a different style of writing notes, right? Whether it can be a star, it can be bullet points, or so on and so forth, or full sentences. Whatever way works best for you, I implore you to use that way. But a way which is easy, which I have found easy, works for me, and that can be from my own, shortcomings, is bullet points. Just short bullet points, phrases, not full sentences, and so on and so forth. And this is because I write really slow. So if I try to make a full sentence, by the time I write the sentence, you like 4 or 5 paragraphs beyond what I just wrote, and I just missed all that, right? So if that helps you, because you also have a problem like me that you write slow, then write it in bullet points, very fast. 2nd year Hijrah, fasting obligatory, right? Or something like this, right? And I'm stressing this because I really, really, really want everyone to benefit from these points, inshallah ta'ala. The Shaykh, he says, فَقَدْ صَامَ النَّبِي صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ 9 رَمَضَانَاتٍ. And that the Prophet ﷺ, he fasted 9. He fasted how many? 9 Ramadanat. 9 Ramadans. Naam. ثم توفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. And then he passed away sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet ﷺ, he fasted how many Ramadans? 9 Ramadans. Is also another point you want to have down. The Prophet ﷺ fasted 9 Ramadans. Naam. These things are very important to know. Very important to know. It's very important that we educate and we teach our children about the intricacies and the details of the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this gives them a role model. Because verily the Prophet ﷺ, he is our role model. He is the one who we have as an example. So the more we know about him, then the better we are equipped to imitate him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is an encouragement to our children that the Prophet ﷺ, from the time that Ramadan was made obligatory upon the Muslims, he fasted all the way until he died. And then what we do is that you educate the children also, is that look how the Prophet ﷺ, who was the best of mankind, who was the best of the prophets and the messengers, the best of the children of Adam, the master of the children of Adam, that he fasted and he worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until he died. And this is a clear refutation upon the Sufiya, who say that worship is only a tadrib, is only a training to train the soul, and once your soul reaches a point, you don't have to do any more worship. There's no more halal and haram for you. You are beyond halal and haram. You don't have to abide by any of the rules of Islam because you have reached a point. So once the children understand that the best of mankind, the best of the prophets and the messengers, worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until he died, then they would know when anyone comes and says that you can reach a point that you don't have to worship Allah ta'ala no more, then they would know already this person dal mudlil. This person is astray. And he leads others astray. And it's important that we educate our children so they have this distinction. So a person doesn't have to come out and say, I'm a Sufi, before our children realize that guy's a Sufi. Because you know what? A Sufi is not going to give you that courtesy. He's not going to come to you and say, I'm a Sufi, I want to lead you astray. He's not going to come and give you that courtesy. But he's going to come and he's going to try to fool you. But there are going to be certain ibarat, certain things, certain expressions that are going to come out from him that's going to give you an indication of who he actually is. So if they come and start saying things like, oh, our shaykh, he has reached a point that he doesn't have to worship Allah Ta'ala anymore, then our children will know, this one's a Sufi. Get away from me, you guy. I don't want to hear nothing from you. That's it. They will already know it's a Sufi. They will know this is wrong because the Prophet ﷺ, in the second year of Hijriya, right, what was made obligatory? Fasting. And from that time, he fasted how many Ramadans? 9 Ramadans. Until when? Until he died. So they will realize the Prophet ﷺ worshiped Allah until he died. So there's no way that Shaykh so-and-so, Maulana so-and-so, such and such has reached a point he doesn't have to worship Allah Ta'ala anymore. This is wrong. They will know that already. They will have some distinction. And this is very, 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 very important. Not just that we learn the qawa'id and principles of Da'wah Salafiyah, but that we implement them. We implement them. It's very important that we implement them and we have some type of distinction where we're able to distinguish between that which is right, that which is wrong, between Salafiyya and Hizbiyya, between Sunnah and Bid'ah, so on and so forth, between the one who's Sunni and the one who's Bid'i. That we have some type of distinction. It's very important. طيب على كل, the Shaykh goes on and he says والصيام في اللغة, الصيام في اللغة, in the Arabic language. And this was something that our brother Abu Anisha Jazallahu Khaira, he just mentioned as well, that in the language of the Arab, الصيام, it means what? Who remembers? To refrain. طيب بالعربي الإمساك. Al-imsak, or to refrain. This is the meaning of siyam in the lugha. This is in the Arabic language. And it's always important when the ulama, they mention the definitions of things, they mention what it means in the lugha, and then they mention what it means inside of the sharia. Is a very big benefit in doing that, because you will see that there's a correlation between what it means linguistically and what it means legislatively, right? And at the same time, if you understand both definitions, then you will see the intricate differences sometimes that exist between the two, as the Shaykh is going to go over bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So in the lugha of the Arab, as-siyam, it means al-imsak. Al-imsak. Naam. And the Shaykh, he mentions al-imsak an al-kalam, to be quiet or to refrain from speech, or an al-mashi, or to refrain from walking. Naam. So you find that in the language of the Arab that the word siyam has a broad meaning. Has a broad meaning. You can say that a person is sa'im if he was sakit, he was quiet, he didn't talk to anyone. right? Then you can say he's sa'im. He's sa'im, right? Fasting. Or if he was standing still. If a person or a thing was standing still, then you could say sa'im. Then that thing is sa'im, right? It is fasting. But of course, in that context, we will understand it's not speaking about the legislative fast, because they're withholding from talking or from walking and so on and so forth. Naam. طيب. The Shaykh, he says, وَأَمَّا إِمْسَاكَ عَنِ الْكَلَامِ. He said, with regards to imsak, or refraining or withholding from speech, شوف العلماء. Look at the ulama. They're not arrogant like you find ulama ahl bid'ah, right? They just say stuff devoid of any proofs. Why? Because they don't have any proof, right? And then they get offended if you ask for proof, because it exposes them, right? But they educate their followers into this crazy understanding of asking for proofs is somehow disrespectful. It's somehow disrespectful. The ulama of Ahl Sunnah, when they speak, they mention the adillah when it is appropriate. Now, when it is appropriate, they mention the adillah, and what they say is based upon the adillah. Now, so if you do a study on the works of Ahl Sunnah, you will find that what they say coincides with the proofs and evidences 100%. And that's what we hold on to. That's what we hold on to. Anything that doesn't match up to the proofs and the evidences, then this is what we leave alone, right? But ala kullin, even when speaking about the definition of siyam lughatan, Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan hafidhahullah ta'ala, he brings what? Dalil. It just doesn't tell you al-siyam bima'na imsak fil lugha, and then that's it, he keeps going. But he brings you dalil. He brings you dalil to show that it means in the lugha imsak, and in this case specifically on speech, on speaking. Naam, wa amma al-imsak an al-kalam, with regards to withholding from speech, kama fi qawlihi ta'ala, just as it is in the statement of Allah Ta'ala and Maryam, on our mother Maryam, where it was said, as Allah Ta'ala informs us, Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawman, that verily I have made a vow to Ar-Rahman that I will fast. Sawman, that I will fast, right? But then listen to what is mentioned. وَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا, and I will not speak to any human being on this day. So see, I said I have taken a vow to Ar-Rahman that I will make a fast, and verily I won't speak to any human being today. So her fast was upon what? What did she refrain from? Speaking. You see? So now that's a dalil that in the lugha of the Arab, as-siyam, it comes with som, it comes with the meaning of al-imsak and al-kalam, to withhold from speech. To withhold from speech. Also will enter into the broad meaning of siyam or som shar'an, right? No, lughatan. Try to keep it on your toes, man. You gotta pay attention, right? Not shar'an, not legislatively, linguistically. For legislatively is something different, but linguistically, nah, that fits linguistically. So linguistically, you can say that withholding from speech is fasting, and that is what? Lughatan. Lughatan, or linguistically, in the language of the Arab. طيب. The Shaykh, he says, ففي هذه الآية أن الإمساك عن الكلام يسمى صوما. He says, so in this ayah, withholding from speech has been called fasting. Withholding from speech has been called fasting. طيب. What about walking? Remember the Shaykh, he mentioned specifically walking, because it means to withhold, but he brought two examples. He said to withhold and to refrain from speech and walking. Right? So what about walking? What's the proof now that to withhold from walking and to stand still can be called siyam? Shaykh, he brings some lines of poetry. It says, خَيْلٌ صِيَامٌ وَأُخْرَى غَيْرُ صَائِمًا تَحْتَ الْعَجَاجِ وَأُخْرَى تَعْلُكُ الْلُجَمَا. He said that this horse Suyamun. This horse, suyamun. Ma ma'na suyamun? Suyam means what? Refrain. Or it's translated as sometimes as fasting. Or to abstain, fasting, refrain, right? So he says this particular horse, he says suyamun. Fasting. Well, we understand fasting here means what? He's refraining from walking. He said this horse here, he is suyamun. He's not walking, he's still. He says وَأُخْرَى غَيْرُ صَائِمَةٍ. But the other one is not sa'ima. The other one is not fasting. The other one is not refraining from walking. But he says the other one is not refraining from walking. تَحْتَ الْعَجَاجِ. He said rather this one who's not refraining from walking, he's under the cloud of dust. Under the cloud of dust because of the dust that the horse it pushed up. Right? He says وَالْأُخْرَى. And the other one that is fasting, that is refraining from walking, the Shaykh, he says, ta'luqul lujuma, that is biting on his reins. You know the reins that you use to control the head of the horse, and that thing that goes in the mouth, right? And when the horse is not doing something, a lot of times he just stands there and he chews on it. So he said this, and the other one who's fasting, he's just standing there biting on his reins, right? So in any event, we see here in the language of the Arab that they utilize the word siyam, wasa'im, wasa'ima to refer to a horse that was what? That was not moving. And for the other one that was in motion, they called it what? غَيْرُ صَائِمَةٍ. And the other one, غَيْرُ صَائِمَةٍ. He's not fasting, he's not refraining, meaning that what? He's in motion. He's moving around. Right? So, this is an encouragement. This is an encouragement for myself, and I hope for you all, to learn Arabic. That we have to learn Arabic. It's a very rich and dynamic and beautiful language. It's a very rich and beautiful language. Now, and you see the beauty of expression and how the clarity of the ibarat and so on and so forth, and the precision, and the choice of words and so on and so forth. It's amazing. It's amazing. So this is an encouragement for myself. And for everyone who's hearing my voice, we all have to learn Arabic. Now, the Shaykh, he says, وَأَمَّا فِي الشَّرْعِ. But with regards in the Sharia, what does Siyam mean in the Shara'? In the Shara', the Shaykh, he says, الصيام هو الإمساك. That Siyam, it is to refrain, right? So now we understand why Siyam is called Siyam. We understand why Siyam is called Siyam, because lughatan it means to what? Refrain. Also shar'an it means to what? Refrain. But in the shara' it means to refrain on specific things. On specific things. So the Shaykh, he says, huwa al-imsak biniyatin. And I'm going to say this slow because I want everyone to write this definition down. That legislatively, as-siyam, it means to withhold upon an intention, or to intentionally withhold. So it's not just withholding, but it's withholding upon an intention, upon a niyyah. Gotta have a niyyah. Now, huwa al-imsak biniyatin an mufattirat. That it is to withhold intentionally on the what? On those things which will break a person's fast. So to intentionally withhold upon those things that will break a person's fast. Al-hissiyya wal-ma'nawiyya. To intentionally withhold from those things that will break a person's fast, those things that are both actual or physical, and those things that are in meaning or intangible. Right? To withhold intentionally or with a niyyah from those things that will break a person's fast. And those things that will break a person's fast, they will either be hissiyya, they will be things that are actual physical things, or they will be things that are what's called ma'nawiyya, or they will be things, what did we just say ma'nawiyya was? Intangible things, or anything like this, right? But yeah. And inshallah ta'ala, the Shaykh goes on to explain, it'll make more sense. He says, من طلوع الفجر الثاني from the rise of the second Fajr, from the second Fajr, Naam, ila ghurub al-shams, until the sun has set. So he gives you an indication in the definition of the time frame of fasting. It is from when? The second Fajr, not the first Fajr, right? Right? Wait, not the first Fajr, but the second Fajr. Because the first Fajr, which was the Fajr that Bilal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he would call the adhan for, this was the Fajr to wake people up, to let them know that Salatul Fajr is about to come. It ain't come in yet. It's not Fajr yet. But it's to wake people up, to let them know that Salatul Fajr is coming. So wake up, prepare yourself for Salatul Fajr. And in Ramadan, it's time to eat suhoor. This is your time to eat suhoor now. Because it's from the Sunnah to delay the suhoor. Right? It's not from the Sunnah to eat a really big meal at like 1 o'clock in the morning, right, and then go to sleep. But to delay that meal until the suhoor time, until the time of sahar. And delay that suhoor until the time of sahar. And the time of sahar is that time qubayl al-fajr, right before fajr. That's why it's called suhoor, because you eat it in sahar. And sahar is qubayl al-fajr. Now, so that's when you're supposed to eat suhoor, right before fajr. طيب. Ala kullin, when the second adhan was called, that's the adhan for what? The actual Fajr. So now, that's it. No more eating and drinking, because now it's actually Fajr. And this is what the Shaykh means by the second Fajr. So the Shaykh says, وَأَمَّا, and it's important now, because he's going to go through the definition bit by bit, to show you how each portion of the definition is critical for understanding what is Siyam in the Shara, or in the legislation. He says, وَأَمَّا الْإِمْسَاكِ bidun niyyah. He said, with regards to withholding, he said, without a niyyah, he said, فَهَذَا لَا يُسَمَّى صِيَامًا شَرْعًا. He said, this is not considered, nor is it called fasting legislatively. If a person withholds from those things that break the fast, but not intentionally, he doesn't have an intention, doesn't have the niyyah to do so, then this is not called fasting legislatively. The Shaykh says, إِذَا لَمْ يَأْكُلْ وَلَمْ يَشْرَبْ بِدُونِ النِّيَّةِ يُسَمَّى الصِّيَامُ لُغَةً. He said, even though not eating and not drinking, even without an intention, is called fasting linguistically. Linguistically, it's called fasting, right? But legislatively, it's not fasting. So although linguistically a person can say, but I'm fasting, because there's no intention, legislatively he's not fasting, so therefore he's not rewarded for fasting, because he did not have an intention to fast. So the Shaykh says, even though it is called fasting in the lugha, linguistically, it's not called fasting in the shara. He said, la shara'an. It's not fasting legislatively. لِقَوْلِهِ sallallahu alayhi wasallam, due to this statement of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So now you see the dalil. لَبُدَّ مِنَ adilla. You gotta have a dilla, right? Because the Shaykh is telling you now, a person comes and he says, but I didn't eat and I didn't drink from the time of Fajr to the time of Maghrib. I didn't eat, I didn't drink, right? But I didn't intend to fast, but I didn't eat and I didn't drink. So will I be rewarded for my fast? And the Shaykh is saying no. So the person now might say, well, what's the dalil? You're telling me I don't get no fasting. Why? What's the proof I don't get no? How you know? Right? People's like that, right? How you know? You don't know what's in my heart. How many times you heard that? You don't know what's in my heart. How you know I don't get reward? Right? But due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالِ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that verily actions are but by their intentions. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَىٰ, and that every individual will have what he intended. So if you didn't intend to fast, you don't get rewarded for fasting. You see? If you didn't intend to fast, you get no reward for fasting. But you have to intend to fast. And hadith muttafaqun alayh. Hadith is agreed upon by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim. The Shaykh says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ الْإِنسان And this is what I love about Sheikh Salih Fawzan. He goes on to really explain and to make it clear, right? He says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ الْإِنسَانَ, he said, even if an individual, or if an individual لم يأكل ولم يشرب ولم يعمل أي شيء من المفطرات من طلوع الفجر الثاني إلى غروب الشمس ولكنه لم ينوي الصيام فهذا لا يعتبر صائما شرعا وليس له أجر في هذا وإن كان يسمى صياما في اللغة. He says, so if a person were to not eat and to not drink and to not do anything from those things which will invalidate the fast from the time of the second Fajr until the sun had set, but he did not intend to fast, then this is not considered fasting legislatively, although and he gets no reward for it, although it may be considered fasting linguistically. But legislatively, it's not fasting, he gets no reward for it. But so this is why the Shaykh, he mentions biniyatin, that he has the intention. It's very important. So now what about this statement? Now, what about the statement al-hissiyya, those things that are tangible, those things that tangibly will break the fast? The Shaykh, he says, what are the things that will tangibly break the fast? As an example, kal-akl wal-jima' wal-shurb, like eating, drinking, having intercourse with one's spouse. Now, these things will break the fast. فَتُسَمَّ حِسِّيَّةً عَمَلِيَّةً. So they call things that are tangible, things that you perform, actions. Tangible things that you perform, actions, right? So now we understand what's meant by tangible. Those things that will physically, a person will physically do, that will break his fast. Like eating, drinking, and having intercourse. Right? So what are some examples of those things that will tangibly break your fast? Like what? Eating, drinking, intercourse. Things are tangible, break your fast. Right. Then the Shaykh, he says, al-ma'nawiyya, but those things that will intangibly break the fast or reduce the fast. And the Shaykh, he makes clear and he explains what he intends. He said you have those things which will break your fast, but they're ma'nawiyya, they're not tangible. Right? See, food, drink, intercourse, these things are tangible. Correct? But things that are not tangible, the Shaykh, he brings, he says, for example, al-ghiba, backbiting. Naam. Wal-namima, and slandering. Wa-shatam, verbally abusing. Wa-qawl zur, and speaking with foul, nasty, repugnant speech. Wa-kalam qabih, and speaking with vile, ugly speech. وَفِعْلْ مُحَرَّمْ, and acting and doing something haram. مَنْ نَظَرْ إِلَى الْحَرَامِ, from looking at something that is haram. وَاسْتِمَاعْ إِلَى مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهِ, and from listening to something that Allah has made prohibited. Then verily these are things that will break the fast, or these are intangible things that will break the fast. But I want you to pay attention, because the Shaykh, he doesn't intend that if a person makes ghiba, then his fast is over, you got to make a day up. It's not what he intends. So he goes on to explain, he says, لِأَنَّهَا, because these things تَنْقُصُ أَجْرَ الصَّائِمِ, because these things will reduce the reward of the person who was fasting. أَوْ لَا يَكُونُ لَهُ أَجْرٌ مَعَهَا, or there are things that will reduce the reward so much so that a person gets no reward for his fasting. You understand? Doesn't necessarily have to make the day up, right? So he has the day in his record, but he gets no reward for fasting that day. Why? Because he reduced his reward by backbiting people, slandering people, verbally abusing people, looking at the haram, and so on and so forth, listening to the haram. So the person who doesn't lower his gaze, he's not lowering his gaze and he's fasting, then that is reducing the reward that he gets for the fasting. A person fasting, but he listening to music and so on and so forth, that's going to lower the reward that he gets from his fasting, and so on and so forth. These things will lower the reward, lower the reward, lower the reward, lower the reward, and they can possibly lower the reward حتى لا يبقى منها شيء, they could lower the reward until there remains nothing from it. Naam. Until nothing remains from the reward. Aw minhu shay. Until nothing is from exists from the reward. No reward left. Destroys it. Naam. طيب. The Shaykh, he says, وَقَدْ تستغرق أجره فلا يكون له أجر. He said, it is perhaps, or these things will absorb the reward. They would absorb the reward. Every time he makes a haram act, he makes ghiba, he verbally abuses someone, he speaks nasty things, he's talking foolishness and so on and so forth, right? And it can be things that people sometimes don't think about. And a person can be fasting and then he just, the evil of his nafs, he start reciting an old Run DMC song or something like this, right? He thinking nothing, he's just reciting some most dumb lyrics, reducing it. This is ugly, despicable speech. Now your fast being reduced. You understand? Let alone a person is arguing and acting foolish and cursing people out and so on and so forth, reducing it. A person decides he want to get on the phone and want to talk, backbite someone and so on and so forth, reducing the fast, absorbing the reward of the fast. And if you do too much of it, it absorbs the reward until what? So there's no reward left. It took it all. You depleted your reward. The Shaykh, he says, and this is in accordance to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man lam yada' qawl az-zur wal 'amal bihi wal jahla, falaysa lillahi haja fi an yada'a ta'amahu wa sharaba." He said that a man or whoever does not give up vile speech and acting in accordance to it and acting ignorantly, then Allah has no need that he give up his food and drink, or that he withhold from his food and his drink. And this hadith akhrajahu al-Bukhari min hadith Abi Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And this hadith has been collected by al-Bukhari from the narration of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. وَلِقَوْلِهِ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and also due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لَيْسَ الصِّيَامُ مِنَ الْأَكْلِ وَالشُّرْبِ وَإِنَّمَا الصِّيَامُ مِنَ اللَّغْوِ وَرَفَثِ. He said that verily fasting is not from just eating and drinking, but rather fasting is also from vain speech and vile and despicable speech and things. Now, so this is important. We understand what fasting is about. What is hadith akhrajahu al-Hakim? This hadith has been collected by Hakim, Musahhaha, and he rendered it to be sahih. Likewise, al-Bayhaqi, he recorded this hadith, and it's from the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ayda. It's also from the hadith of Abu Hurairah. نعم. فالذي يمسك عن الطعام والشراب والمفطرات الحسية ولكن لا يمسك عن الغيبة والنميمة والمحرمات فهذا لم يصم صوم المطلوب. He says, so whoever he withholds from food and from drinking and from those things that will nullify the fasting, that are those tangible things that will nullify the fasting, however, he does not withhold from the intangible things that will nullify the fasting, like ghiba and namima and haram things, then this person is not fasting the fast that is required. He's not fasting the fast that is required. So it's a must that we understand the reality of what is fasting, and we start to prepare ourselves to fast. Because as it comes in authentic narrations, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to fast abundantly in the month of Sha'ban. This is the month of Sha'ban that we're in right now. Now, so let us imitate the Prophet ﷺ and fast abundantly in the month of Sha'ban upon the way that is sought. That we fast not only from those tangible things that will break the fast, but also from those intangible things that will break the fast. All of this in preparation so that we may better fulfill our obligation of fasting the month of Ramadan. Na'am. The Shaykh, he says, وَقَدْ لَا يَكُونُ لَهُ فِي الصِّيَامِ الْأَجْرِ أَوْ يَكُونُ أَجْرُ قَلِيلٍ. The Shaykh, he says, because if a person doesn't do this, and he doesn't leave off these intangible things that will break the fast, he will find that he will not have any reward for his fast, or he will find that the reward for his fast will be very, very little. Very, very little. He said, and this is what is intended, this is what is meant by their statement, that they withhold from those things that will break the fast, that they intentionally withhold from those things that will break the fast, both those things that are tangible and intangible, from the time of the second Fajr until the sun sets, until Maghrib time. This is what is meant by the definition of fasting shar'an, and what preceded it was meant and understood by the definition of fasting lughatan in the Arabic language. ونكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا.